Hey everyone, welcome to the Wildrift Patch 3.5, where we will be discussing the different changes and how it affects the competitive meta. Looking through the patch highlights, there's gonna be two new champions, Kayn and Aatrox, new game mode which is one for all. There's also gonna be new items, runes, balance changes, as well as updates to the jungle. So let's discuss all of these changes when reading the patch notes. Speaking of new champions, Aatrox is gonna be the newest champion released. This is gonna be viable in the Baron lane, mid lane, and possibly the jungle. Second champion that's gonna be released is Kayn. This is most likely gonna be just a jungle pick. Currently, they're available and you could try them out right now. Next would be gallery skin sets. If you're a skin collector, this is really good for you. You could flex and show it off. New game mode, one for all. This would be available starting tomorrow at November 8th until December 14th. Player behavior. So this is one of the new features they're adding into the game. This is really good. Now there's going to be a penalty type for players who are AFKing in a game. Penalty will apply in the form of X amount of time, Y amount of games. When a player queues, if they have any remaining games, they will sit in queue for X amount of time before they actually search for a match. So an example of that would be if you always leave a game, then the next 5 games you have to wait 5 to 10 minutes before actually queuing. New feature to rank queue, which is the matchmaking avoid list. So players in the ranks diamond below will have the ability to add up 3 new players in their avoid list in the post-game lobby. So when you add someone to your avoid list, you will be no longer matched to the avoid listed player. This most likely would be your feeding teammates or those who just sell the games. This is good for those who are diamond below and would like to avoid certain players. The only problem with this is that it's not applicable master up. So once you reach master tier, then this would disappear. The avoid list will reset every Monday. I think they're trying this out if it's going to be successful, but it's a step into the right direction. This may be abused in master up. That's why they haven't added it there yet. But definitely diamond below, you could use this because there's a lot of players that play in those ranks rather than in master up. In addition to this new penalty, we've also made some adjustments to remake and all chat. So remake will always auto-trigger at 3 minutes. If your teammate is AFK, you don't have to look for it in the settings. Interesting change, they actually removed all chat from all game modes starting this patch, which is very interesting because currently you have the option to remove all chat in the settings. Once you put a team chat, it will not reset. Not sure why they want to remove all chat. Well, 80% of the time it's always toxicity, but there's also 20% of the time, especially when you're playing fun game modes like Aram or Earth, all chat would make your games fun because people like to basically interact or playing against friends. I don't agree with this. Even though mostly it's used for toxicity, there's sometimes that you could use it for fun. And you could manually disable it anyway if you don't want all chat. Next would be position preference rewards. So starting this patch, you'll receive missions that will grant you a reward for opting into preferring a role for which there are currently fewer players. So our goal for this update is to encourage players who see a certain role that is needed to queue up and fill it so that other players in the current queue don't have to autofill. This is only available in ranked and legendary queue. You'll see it as a daily mission 3 times a day. If you're using a role that's not commonly used, then this is such an easy quest for you. This most likely will be applied in jungle and support. If you're playing the least played role, then this is beneficial for you. And you would know the least played role per patch. If you get a quest, then you know people don't like to play jungle or support in your rank. Next, Wild Pass. So this would be available starting November 17, which is right now. Wild Pass reward would be Super Villain Jin with the Ascended version as well. Similar to Superhero Jace. New event would be the Darken event. There's no more Supreme Cell. And then promotion. Another very, very controversial aspect of the patch because this is going to be another gacha type of promotion since you would need to spend 100 wild cores in order to get all of these champions such as the Akali, which has the lowest drop rate. Riot is thinking that most people would like to get the skin and they would only be available through buying boxes. But if you're able to get enough tokens, then you would be able to get them for free. But generally, it's gonna be a semi-gacha wherein you have to test your luck into getting these Crystal Rose skins. These will be available on November 26, which is a week from now. Then going to the champion changes, first on the list would be Ezreal. increasing the base damage of his first skill by 10, which makes his laning phase a bit better and his pokes stronger. Irelia is also given a change. Dash will no longer follow enemy flashes. Oh, this is actually a nerf. Because if you're a good player, you could predict the flash and your first skill would not follow them anymore. Next would be Janna, getting some nerf from 35 to 30, making her charged first skill a bit weaker. And then her passive move speed is also lowered by 3% from 12 to 9. Still a very viable champion and would still be very strong in solo and competitive queue. Kassadin is receiving some adjustments from 570 HP, giving it 30 HP, making him a bit tankier, but reducing the damage of his third skill, which is very, very strong, especially when it comes to the late game. Overall, Kassadin's still an OP pick. They made his survivability a bit stronger, but reducing his overall burst. Next change would be Lux, adjusting her second skill, making it more viable for support from 110 to 130, but decreasing the scaling of the shield by 5%. Her double shield would be from 220 now up to 260, but reduced as well from 40% to 30%. Not the biggest change, still really strong. The bigger change would be her ultimate ratio has been decreased from 85 to 75, but this can be fixed with the coming new items. Next change would be Rakan, receiving some adjustments as well. From a 700 to 1000 range, it would only be a 800 general range. And then base damage is also fixed from 70 to 80. So this has been increased by 10. Most likely this would change Rakan from maxing first skill since it only gives a single range right now. Usually what Rakan players would do is they would max first because it would increase the range. Now they would just max third or even second, then leaving the first skill to level 1 unless you're building AP Rakan. Next change would be Senna, really strong and competitive right now, even giving her some buffs from 250 to 285, which is a 35 damage buff, and then reducing also the cooldown of the Black Mist from 20 to 16. 4-second buff, which is actually very, very big, and this skill is really, really strong if you know how to use it properly. Next on the list would be Seraphine, increasing her base mana regeneration, doesn't change much, allows her to build pure AP rather than buying mana regeneration items. Then we go for Shen, Twilight Assault, which is his first skill, new bonus damage, will apply at 50% effect to attack splash damage. So this would make his wave clear a lot faster, and this would not make him reliant on buying Sunfire always for the wave clear. Another buff would be on Ziggs, increasing his base mana from 435 to 460, and then increasing his mana regen as well. Very interesting buff onto Ziggs because what people build on Ziggs now is pure AP. They don't go for the Archangel anymore. What they go for is the Ludens into Infinity Orb into Rabadons to get his power spike as soon as possible. Ziggs' first build was the Ludens into Archangels, but now people are adjusting his build, and with this buff that's going to be given, people wouldn't go for Archangels anymore. So another change would be Vex, increasing the cooldown of her third skill by 1, as well as the mana cost by 10. This doesn't change much, still a very, very powerful pick in solo queue. And then another change, Yone, one of the most broken champions right now, decreasing the second skill by 10. This is useless. This is the bigger nerf, which is the third skill from 11 seconds to 14 seconds. This is understandable, but Yone will still be really strong if you know how to use his third skill properly. Ability cast speed scaling for champion adjustments. So what's here? So Caitlyn and Saya. Cast speed now scales with attack speed. Oh, this is very interesting. The cast time of Saya and Caitlyn's first skill is now decreased if you're able to build more attack speed, which is a good quality of life change. And then Yone, Yasuo, and Tryndamere overcap crit scaling. What's happening here is that if you reach 100% crit, this is now similar to League PC wherein you would get additional damage. This would be similar to LoL PC since it would convert the excess crit chance into attack damage. This is very good, especially into low elo players that like to build a lot of crit items. Aram changes, they're just nerfing and buffing some champions. Earth changes, nerf same as well. Not that important, but this is the more important part, which is the gameplay changes. New item, which is the Horizon Focus. This is more for those who have a lot of CC or have a lot of range. Total cost to 8, which is quite cheap, giving you AP, HP, as well as ability haste. Passive would be Hyper Shot. When a non-targeted ability hits a champion at least 500 range away, it applies 1 stacks. When you immobilize a champion, adds 2 stacks. Stacks last for 5 seconds. After reaching 3 stacks, this is similar to Vayne's second skill, wherein the third stack would deal additional damage. Really good on poke champions such as Lux, Vex, even Orianna. This is also possibly viable on Morgana as well because immobilizing a champion would grant even more stacks. So very interesting item for those mage champions. It is also viable on Ziggs. Next new item would be the Lord Dominic's Regards. This is another armor penetration item with a total cost of 3-1. So this is the same as Mortal Reminder and Cyril's Grudge. This would give you attack damage, crit chance, as well as armor penetration. The passive of this is that your first attack on a champion after being out of combat with champions has an 80% increased attack speed. Basically, this is your ADC armor penetration item. If you don't need anti-healing, you could just build this because this gives really good stats for you. And this might put ADCs back because of the possible damage output that this item could give. If you're using an ADC, most likely you would leave the anti-healing to your teammates rather than getting it yourself. You would be able to reach 100% crit a lot easier now. The last item would be the Awakened Soul Stealer, rather a reworked item, giving a new build path, which is Prophet's Pendant with Phoenix Codex, with a total cost of 3,000. The new stats that it gives, 65 AP, 20 ability haste, and 150 HP. So it gives a magic penetration buff, which is really big, and takedowns on enemy champions within 3 seconds of dealing damage reduce the remaining cooldowns of your abilities, including ultimates, by the way, by 20%. For me, this is a really good ARAM item, and if there are champions that could use this, most probably Lux, since she has low cooldown on her skills, but this would be best on the assassin-type champions, the AP assassin-type champions, like Echo, probably, or Fizz. Divine Sunder, receiving some love from 20 damage to 25, as well as 20 ability haste to 25 ability haste. This is a buff on champions that like to use this item, such as Wukong. Morello has also received an adjustment with a new build pass, Fiendish Codex plus Oblivion Orb. New stats as well, 70 AP, 20 ability haste. The magic penetration has been removed. It also doesn't give health anymore. And this is still your go-to anti-healing item. But I don't think people will build this anymore with all of the new AP items that have been introduced. Not a lot of people will build Morello anymore, especially that it doesn't give magic penetration and the HP, which is two very, very important stats on AP champions. The only time you would build Morello if the opponent has a lot of healing, such as Soraka, and it's something that you really need. But generally, you wouldn't build this item anymore. Youmuu's Ghostblade receiving some love from 3k to 2.9. This is a good buff for junglers that like to build this, like Kha'Zix and Lee Sin. New runes. Champion rune has been removed and it has been changed to Sudden Impact. After exiting stealth or using a dash, blink, or teleport effect, damaging an enemy champion grants 10 armor penetration and magic penetration, by the way, for 3 seconds. This is good on assassin champions like Zed, Akali, even Katarina, those who have a lot of blinks. And this also could work on Fizz, Rengar, Kha'Zix, etc. etc. Rune changes. Reworked rune Pathfinder, so it also gives a new effect. Grants 20 bonus speed in the river. When in the river, while out of combat, restore 0% missing health or 0.6 missing mana every second and gain additional 10 move speed. Really big buff onto Pathfinder. The roles that use this the most would be jungle and support, and as a jungler, I would take this buff any time of the day because this would make my roams a lot faster and this would give me additional regen as well. Reworked rune Face Rush. This still gives movement speed upon hitting champions 3 times with separate attacks or abilities. But the interesting part here is that it also now grants ability haste and reduces your current basic ability cooldowns by 20%. Really big buff. Most likely be used by the mage champions. Number 1 on the list would be Orianna. Definitely gonna be using this rune since this would make her more mobile as well as reducing the cooldown of her skills. Other champions that could use this would be Ziggs or even Lux so that they would be able to kite better. But I think this would also be used by melee champions such as Darius because they would benefit from this buff. So very interesting on which champions would use Face Rush in the future. Next rune would be Brutal, increasing the damage from 7 to 12. Oh, this is quite big. This is a 6 damage buff. This is going to be very important, especially with the Sudden Impact that gives 10 armor penetration. They have to buff Brutal so that it would be able to compete with the sudden impact. Electrocute has been buffed from 20 seconds. It now scales, which is good for those who use this. Scorch also has been buffed from 10 seconds now to 8 seconds, increasing the damage as well from 24 to 28. What they're doing right now is increasing the damage of all of the basic runes so that they would be more competitive, which is very, very interesting. Triumph has been changed. I think this is a nerf because before it deals 5% damage to any target below 35%. Now it only deals 5% damage to champions lower than 35% health. Basically, this is a jungle nerf, but still a very, very viable rune. Adaptive Carapace is receiving some love from 12 armor MR to 16 armor MR. What Riot is doing here is they're buffing all of the early game runes. Bone Plating has also received a buff. So instead of blocking damage from 3 attacks after the initial hit, it now immediately blocks damage from the first attack. This is a good QOL change into Bone Plating so that you would be able to block more damage. Because what people would do is that they would poke you, and then once the Bone Plating gets shown, they wouldn't proc it and it would be wasted. So this is a really good buff for this rune. Jungle, I think this is the biggest change of them all. Challenging Smite has been removed, which is the red smite. And then now, they have also changed the smite. It now has a flat damage at all levels, and then it upgrades into Chilling Smite after 3 uses. So instead of clearing camps to upgrade the smite, you just need to use it 3 times. Very, very similar to the League PC version. Passive is still the same. Chilling Smite, still the same. New jungle mechanic, which is the jungle conservation. We're introducing the conservation system to make roaming and ganking less punishing to jungle players and to give jungler an opportunity to catch up when they have fallen behind. Smite and Chilling Smite now grant their user the conservation buff. Every 5 seconds, the player gains 12 or 6 stacks towards their conservation buff. The number of stacks earned is based on the gold income of the player and the player's team. If the player's team gold is lower than the enemy's team gold by 10% or more, and if the player's gold income is lower than their allies by 5% or more, gain 12 stacks per 5 seconds. Any other state, gain 6 stacks per 5 seconds. When you kill a large or epic monster, you will consume all the current stacks of the conservation buff, granting you 1 gold per stack. Max is 150 charges. Long story short, this is a catch-up mechanic for gold, especially those who like to gank a lot. Basically, this is a gold catch-up mechanic and a nerf for those who like to power farm all day. And this gives power for those ganking junglers because they could now gank and get more gold when they get back to their own jungle. This hasn't been implemented in League PC, but this is very similar to the catch-up mechanic in League PC. Jungle Camp Leashing. We're reducing the attack ranges of several camps to remove an optimization where a player could stand in between 2 camps and farm both camps at once. Raptor 3-1, Gromp. They have nerfed this by half. Let's see if the double camps would be still viable. I think the blue and Gromp is still viable, but the red and Raptors, we'll have to see. This is a nerf for Jungle Morgana, if you wouldn't be able to do the double camps anymore. We're rebalancing jungle camps to make jungle less frustrating and more accessible. Let's see the changes. Non-epic jungle from 10 to 12. Camps begin to level every 60 seconds after the first 30 seconds. Armor and magic resist reduced to 0. The HP has been nerfed from 2.5 to 2.2 for all of the camps. Scuttler as well has been nerfed. Non-epic jungle camp respawn times from 145 to 150. Gold changes has been nerfed as well because of the conservation mechanic from 130 to 100. Quite big actually. Not sure how much gold a jungle will get when the first objective spawn, but most likely would still be able to complete your first item. Triforce and Sunder is a bit negotiable because they're quite expensive. So we have to see if you could still build them even though you don't get any kills before the first objective. XP changes as well. A lot of nerfs on the XP. I would want to see if you would still get level 5 on a full clear, because if you don't get level 5 on a full clear, then this would change a lot of jungle paths. Attack range change has been said a while ago, and then very interesting change. Krugs no longer split to mini Krugs. So this is bad for Jungle Scion because you could easily farm stacks with the Krugs camp. New shareable red Brambleback and blue Sentinel. If you play League PC, this is very similar to Ivern. After 7 minutes, they will drop a second crest for allies, and this buff will only drop if the jungler clears the camp. Very, very important thing that people should note. The jungle should clear the camp and not your laners. So if they would want to get red or blue buff, they need the jungle to clear it so that they would both benefit from it. Because not only that they would get the buff, They will also get the XP and gold from the cap. Second crest will stay on the ground for 45 seconds before disappearing. Any ally except the jungler can pick up the shared buff by sitting in range for 2.5 seconds. Second crest will not drop if the enemy team slays your red brambleback or blue sentinel. So this is only for your side of the buffs. So this would prevent the enemy team from getting 4 red buffs on their team. The evolved buff has now been removed because it's now shared throughout your team. Rift Herald has been buffed as well, decreasing the animation summon from 7.6 to 4 and the charge time as well from 2.5 to 1.75. Huge buff for those who like to prioritize Herald, and this is a nerf from those who like to deny Herald because it's gonna be a lot harder to deny the Herald from charging in this patch. Bounty mechanism now has a cap. From uncapped, it now gives a maximum of 1.3k gold, and then maximum gold payment as well from uncapped to 1k gold. Bounty that are not fully dropped in the first shutdown will be added to the next shutdown. So what this means, if there's a 20-0 opponent that has a 1.3k gold bounty and you take them down, the next time they respawn, they would still have a 1.3k gold shutdown because there's data ahead in the game. Instead of giving a one-time big-time shutdown, there is now a cap that has been added. Champion takedown experience. Experience catch up activation time from 30 seconds to 3 minutes. If you get behind early, then you wouldn't be able to catch up as easily because it's now at 3 minutes. This is good for the laning phase, but after the laning phase, which is the 3-minute mark, this is where the teams would switch lanes, then the catch-up XP would take in effect. This is really good on teams that could punish their opponents early. So I think that's it. Skins would be Blood Moon Aatrox, Soul Stealer Kayn, and the Crystal Rose skins, which would be available on November 26. New accessories as well, extra bits, Scryer's Bloom, it will send an enemy champion spotted, added music on recalls for certain skin tiers, updated skin tier gem visuals, as well as ARAM progression. Okay, I think that's all for this patch. The biggest change would be the jungle changes, of course. Very interested to see how we would be able to do leashing and how we clear the camps and what possible new pathings that would happen. Other interesting changes as well would be the API itemization with the Soul Stealer plus Horizon Focus. This would change a lot of item builds, and generally I think this patch favors all of the roles except for support. I think there's not much changes in support, but for the Baron laners, a lot of rune changes, junglers, almost everything, mid laners with the items, ADCs, new item as well. Good patch overall, and I think that's it. If you enjoyed, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content. And that is it for our 3.5 patch notes. I hope to see you guys next time. Peace out. Ciao, ciao.
I'm finally facing it all, fearless.